Hey, you all. It's your girl, Y Renee here. It is 7 o'clock on the dot. So glad to be here with you all once again. It is Let's Talk About All Things Divorce with your girl, Y Renee. I am Y Renee, trauma recovery coach. And I've been having this conversation all month long. If you all have not been watching and paying attention to what's been going on, I've been really, really excited to have different people come on and share their story of surviving divorce, give tips and tidbits, because again, this is not something where we are bashing or I really believe in the institution of marriage, but I want to give people tips and tools to help them get over the trips and traumas of divorce. So my guest tonight is somebody who answered one of the calls that I have, and I'm going to bring her on in. Her name is Kari. Hello, Kari. I can't wait for you to join in. Well, hello there.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and
Perfect.
clear. Welcome, welcome,
Perfect.
welcome. I'm so
Thank you.
honored. I'm so honored to have you. We've never officially met, so thank you for
That's right.
answering the call
Of
to
course.
want to come on and talk about this awesome topic of let's talk about divorce. So please, before we get started, introduce yourself. Tell people a little bit about you. At the end, I'll give you more time to tell things you got going on and how people can connect with you if they want to connect with you.
Yeah, great. My name is Kari Z. I started my own coaching business last year during COVID. After being in the corporate America for 10 years, I'm actually still there in my day job. I'm an engineer by day. I've been in a leadership role for the last 6 years. And which is really when I fell in love with coaching and working with employees and all of that. So I'm trying to work my way into that full time now because I just love being able to connect with people like you're doing, and just it's such a thrilling thing to be a part of people's lives and be welcome in like that and see the transformation that they go through, and just be an observer is such an awesome thing. So
Well, good job. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure. I'm honored that you accepted the call when I put it out.
yep.
I forgot which group you actually seen the flyer. Do you remember? Because I put in a couple groups.
I might have been the speaker
Okay,
circle
very
or
good. Probably the speaker circle. Very good. So, okay, so you're part of the speaker circle with me, which is amazing. So you
I
know
am.
Denise and everything. So that's amazing. So let's get started. My first question has been, what triggers me kind of sort of to this day is I've been divorced 11 years now. So when you're looking at applications or you're looking at like purchasing a car, people that just want different information,
Oh.
which box do you check? Do you check single? Or better yet, are you divorced? Have you been married? Well, yeah, let's go with that question first. Which box do you check?
Okay.
Single? Look, I'm all over the place. Single, divorced, separated, married. Which box do you check?
You know what? That's such a funny thing that you bring that up. So I am divorced. It'll be 6 years in January. And I always check the single box because I'm like, I'm single. I mean, divorced is not who I am. It's not a relationship status. But sometimes I've noticed, like on apps where you're connecting with other people, that divorce can be a great way to actually connect with people. So sometimes I feel pulled there, but I always check the single box because I'm like, I'm single. That's my relationship status. I don't define myself as a divorcee on those boxes, but I'm happy to tell people, been there, done that. I'm divorced. Like, let's talk. So.
So do you not check the divorce because even though it's a status, do you feel like, because this is one of my reasons, and I guess this is why I have a problem with it, and most times I may just leave it blank. It just depends on how I'm feeling that day. Do you feel like it has such a negative tone to it that to be a divorcee?
It does kind of feel that way, where I just feel like, why do you need to know that? It feels a little bit like an invasion of privacy. It almost, to your point, feels like it can be a point of judgment, right? Where it's not, oh, are you divorced? Like, why does that matter to you if I'm applying for a car application? Like, what, are you going to hold that against me? Why is that even an option? So there is a little bit of that where it's like, I don't need your judgment on that situation. It's not a personal issue in terms of feeling ashamed or anything like that. It's more just, I don't know these people and I don't choose to share that with them about my life.
Okay, so here we go. Let's jump right into it. How many marriages have you had? Because some of my people have had multiple marriages.
Just the one.
Just one. Okay, very good. So how long was your marriage?
We were only married for 3 years, together for 5, so it was a pretty quick. We were engaged after 9 months, and then it took a whole year and some to get the wedding planned. As I'm sure you know, the wedding industry is an industry, and you go somewhere and they're like, I can book you in 9 months, and you kind of go with what they've got available for you. But we were married for 3 years, um, and I'll tell you what. I do not knock this no matter how long you've been married. I still to this day tell people it is the most difficult thing I've ever done emotionally. That is the hardest thing I've ever done.
The actual filing for divorce part or the marriage part?
Just the divorce, going through the marriage part.
I have to ask. I have to ask. Listen, so nobody will have you. I'm covering every rock. I want to make sure that we're definitely clear about
Yeah,
what was the most
no,
difficult part.
exactly. No, it's actually just the whole act of getting divorced. I struggled personally for 9 months before I even brought the conversation to my partner. It was just 9 months of internal struggle, questioning, is this the right thing? What am I doing? And just that emotional turmoil inside my own head before I was finally to the point where I said I should probably have a conversation with my spouse about this. And but that it was just such a difficult period emotionally. And then fortunately, our divorce was very amicable. The proceedings, though, I'll tell you what, they don't make it easy for you to get divorced, and that in itself is very traumatizing, because it's like, I'm trying to separate from this person as quickly as possible. We shook hands, we smiled, we waved, we walked apart, and it still is going to take a year to file the paperwork, and every few weeks you've got to sign something else, you've got to show up somewhere else. I mean, that in and of itself was an
Because
incredibly
we all
just
you could just walk in and get a marriage license, and it depends on what state you're in. Anywhere between
yep.
24 to 72 hours, you could be married. However, when we're talking about splitting it, they want you to jump through hoops, do cartwheels, flip over
That's right.
backwards, give away 5 arms, 2 legs, and it's really a mess. So
That's right.
I'm just, I feel you. I promise you, I feel you. So what should have happened for me, which I feel like I didn't have anything. We didn't have anything. I come from abusive situations, so we didn't have anything to break up and do those things. However, my ex-husband dragged it out for a year and 2 months and 9 days to be exact, where it was not necessary. So
Right.
when we go back, because I'm a woman of faith and I don't put my faith off on anybody. So I don't know, are you a believer? Or
I'm not.
okay.
I'm not.
So okay, so but I do have to ask this question because whether you're a believer or not, most times people suggest counseling before marriage. Did you or your significant other get counseling before marriage?
We did not. We discussed it briefly, but at the end of the day, when we had the conversations, it took one conversation, to be honest with you, where we both came out of that saying, you know what? We're just not aligned right now. We don't want the same things here, and we both agreed that divorce was the course of action for us. And
What about before
but
marriage? That's what
before,
before.
yeah, so before marriage,
Mhm.
actually, the person that we were going to have perform the ceremony, he did suggest counseling together, and he wanted to do some. I think we actually had to participate in an hour or two with him directly.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, which I
Okay,
mean,
so
we did what we did.
here's a difficult question, or maybe
hmm
not necessarily difficult, but just something to think about. Hindsight is 2020. We all know that. Do you believe that if you would have done some type of counseling, professional counseling beforehand to hit some heavy topics like things you may disagree about,
Ooh.
the whole financial thing, the whole being on the same page? Because we when we date people, for the one of the things I've been saying is we're an ever evolving person. We change. Like I'm not the same person I was early this morning,
That's
and
right.
sometimes we have to understand that in these situations, that people are going to change, and what we do is we forget that other people are human beings, and we don't allow grace or give them forgiveness or passes
Right.
for things that may occur when we're in these relationships. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
So, do you feel? wholeheartedly that if you would have had some type of intense counseling, maybe a month, maybe 2 months before you all actually decided to go ahead and be married, that it may have either made the marriage better where you would still be together today, or maybe made you think about some real things and be like, you know what, maybe we should just stay friends, and maybe marriage is not where we're supposed to go.
Yeah, I don't think it would have prevented the outcome. I do think that it's possible we may have never made it to the altar in the first place. Because
Okay.
I definitely entered into my marriage. There were points where I was reaching out to friends and family and I wasn't so sure about it. You know, I was kind of doubting things and questioning, and definitely found myself at that point of, well, I've already paid for this and we've already sent the invitation. So there was some of that going on too. I think that some real counseling probably would have helped, would have probably prevented us from even making it to the final stage. But I don't think it would have salvaged anything, honestly. It probably would have just expedited the result.
Okay, so I want to welcome everybody that's joined us live and those people who may be watching the replay. I really appreciate you coming on. This is the wonderful Miss Kari Z. We've met via Facebook, and she accepted my invitation to come on and have this conversation with me. So I'm very honored and surprised and excited for her to be here. Excuse me. So we're talking about this counseling thing. So you really don't feel that by the time, okay, so here we go. I heard what you said earlier, because I'll be trying to listen even though I'm not writing stuff down, and then it comes back to me when we're talking. So in the midst of you saying, I heard you say that for 9 months you were trying to or considering having this difficult conversation because you had came to um a decision where you felt like this was no longer going to, I'm assuming, work, correct?
That's correct.
So one, it took you 9 months to have the conversation. What actually, if you can share, what actually kind of made you, what are the things that made you realize or see that this was no longer a good idea to be in this union anymore?
You know, I think ultimately I, for the first time in my life, had experienced some pretty severe depression.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point where I would wake up in the morning, my first thought of the day would be, God damn it. You know, like that was, which is not a fun place to be in. And I've never experienced that before. And I just kind of found myself in this position where I did not look forward to just existing in my own life. It was really, it was just a very low point for me. And at that moment, I finally figured out. I was actually working with an executive coach at the time at work as well. And at one point, I kind of mentioned something to him, and he really stoked that fire and said, you really need to consider this is the end for you. You know, pay attention to what's happening, how you're feeling, what's driving this. And ultimately, that was what got me to the point of, it's time to have a conversation, because if I'm this unhappy, maybe my partner is too. So we should be talking
Were
about
you
this
unhappy
together.
because of the marriage, or were you unhappy because of other things in life, and then just things weren't necessarily where you felt like should be at home, to whereas it kind of contributed to your depression?
I had a lot going on at the time, but most of the thoughts circulated around the relationship itself and how we were communicating with each other, what we wanted for our lives, how we were spending our time together and apart, and the sorts of things, you know, how we were, um, you know, compromising, as people always like to talk about. And I would have conversations with friends, and they would just kind of be like, that doesn't sound right, Kari. You know, you shouldn't have to work so hard to get the person that you're married to want to do these sorts of things with you. And so there was very specifically just relationship things that were contributing directly. Yep.
Okay, somebody, hey, Miss Elizabeth, thank you for joining us. I love you too. Somebody said most couples really don't seek the right help prior to them getting married, and you're so right across the board. I think many people, if we, instead of just going with the fact being that we're so starstruck or stargazed. We think we're in love so much so that we don't actually, we look past all the immediate, maybe some red flags, maybe some flaws or whatever happened, thinking
Yeah.
that we can make the other person change or be perfect. So yes, I totally agree that we don't seek the correct help in getting help. So Kari, back to a couple questions. Like I told you, I will be coming across when they hit me. I'm just gonna ask them. So
Hmm.
when we're talking about you were together a total of 5 years. You said you were married 3, correct?
That's correct.
So in the 3 years, it was 9 months before you actually had the conversation. When did you actually feel like something wasn't right? Was it just at that 9-month moment, or did you have it like maybe 6 months after you got married, a year after you got married?
So this started about a little over 2 years, 2 years, 3 months, 2.5 years ish is the first time that those thoughts started, and then it was at that point that it took me 9 months to actually get to have the conversation. So it was all pretty, I guess, quickly in marriage years. I don't know.
Okay. So when you
Yeah.
had to have the difficult conversation,
Hmm.
what was your spouse, were they upset, were they hurt, did they look like they had been blindsided, did they feel like nothing was wrong and everything was good, and they just felt like, okay, where is this coming from?
No, I think that it was. I think that they were also kind of like, now that you're mentioning it, I think you're right. It wasn't a total blindside, but I think it was maybe didn't realize it was quite as severe as it had gotten to. But once we had some of those, I brought some really tough conversations when we chatted, some really hard things that we had to talk to each other about, and we just kind of went straight to the point. And by the time we were done with it, we both kind of agreed. That we said, well, we're really just not aligned right here in a lot of different ways. And we did consider counseling, but we both were kind of like, you know what, given what we're looking for, I don't think that's going to change anything.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Because my thing is, okay, so one of the things that everybody says is that opposites attract, and even though you may have a couple hiccups, because truth be told, one of the biggest things that we've talked about with the previous people that have been on this I guess it's a podcast or my live, um, is that the fact being that marriage takes work. And
Hmm.
I truly believe a lot of times that people, especially in today's society, that they're willing to throw in the hat a lot quicker than days of old, or people from, our parents' generation. I'm not sure how old you are, so I don't want to age you. But I know I'm 50, so my parents they were quite older. And my parents, before my mom passed away, had made it to 50 years. My other grandparents have been married for years as well. And that stick-to-itiveness, my favorite word, is not there for most people of my generation, even generations to follow, especially these youngsters that think that everything is microwaved. And if they don't get their way, they could just say, forget it, I'm gone. So do you feel, well, even when you got to the point, I guess maybe that's not a good question, because you said that you had to come into some things yourself and you were depressed to make it seem like it didn't work. When you were going through those 9 months of kind of teetering back and forth, trying to figure out how to have a conversation, things like that, were you trying to figure out or think of ways that you could possibly make it work? Were you
Oh
trying
yeah.
to?
Yep.
So you were trying to work on it.
Yeah, that 9 months was me working on, trying to ask myself. I did a lot of thinking about, was I wrong when I first agreed to marry this person? Am I wrong now? What's changed? Why am I having these thoughts? And so, yes, that 9 months for me, even though it was an internal conversation, was me trying to make it work and have the conversations with, with him about like, this, I would like to try this thing with you, or we can try this thing with you. And that's when I had a conversation with a friend eventually that just said, why do you have to work so hard to get your spouse to want to do something that you want to do with them? So that period of time was really when I was putting in that kind of effort to say, okay, wait a minute, let's back these thoughts out and put in some work here instead of just walking away from it. So that was what was going on there too, was in that point.
Okay, so somebody asked, so what is it? What is this? The situation? I don't understand that part. And in the compensation, which I'm thinking conversation, why couldn't you all meet each other halfway?
To when we asked each other what we wanted our futures to look like, and there was some, I think we may have.
Yeah, I can hear you completely. You're
Okay.
just
Okay.
there. You go.
Okay. So ultimately, it boiled down to a big one was children and family. And when we'd had the conversation before, I think maybe there was some miscommunication there, whereas I said, I do not want children. And at the time, he said, I don't want children either. But I think that meant for him, I don't want children right now, but in the future. And I was like, no, I do not want children. I never want children. And that was definitely a point, that was like a deciding factor on that. And for it was not a
Because
point
you
that either
can't,
one of us
you
was
look,
willing.
because you can't meet halfway on having a kid. You
You
either want to
can't meet
have one
halfway on
or you
that.
not.
Yeah. You can't change your mind about that later and say, never mind, we don't want kids after all. So that was really a big one for us. The other things, we didn't even have to get to that conversation because that was really like, let's prioritize what's the most important thing here. And when we talked about family and what we wanted there, didn't agree. And we said, okay, that's end of the conversation, I guess.
Right, pretty much. I mean, for real, seriously, like if that's just a deal breaker. Once you put it on the
Yep.
table, and he's like, okay, so no, really, I want to have kids. You like, no, I'm really not gonna have kids.
Yeah.
There's really nothing else to talk about. Like it's not even
Right.
well, I can answer this question. She said, why don't you want children? Because it's a gift for God. Well, first of all, Kari said in the beginning, you probably came on late. Kari is not a believer. Even though I'm assuming that you probably do like kids, you just don't want no kids, which is totally different for some people. Some people just feel like they don't have a tolerance for children, especially kids in today's age. I'm telling you, sidebar, I was out somewhere yesterday taking care of some business, and I don't have any kids biologically either. I did want some, but I was unable to produce any, which is a whole nother story. However, I have several children that gravitate to me, call me auntie, call me mama by source, whatever have you. But it was a whole bunch of like little bad kids out yesterday, and I couldn't like grab them up and choke them because they didn't belong to me, and they didn't belong to anybody I knew personally. So that's the whole thing when you got to think about having children. You got to see what your tolerance is and how people are raising their kids nowadays.
That's right. Yeah.
And things like that. So I don't know who Gina wants to know how many brothers and sisters you have. I don't know what it has to do with marriage, but if you want to answer that question, go ahead.
I have a brother.
I have one brother. Okay. So let me get back into this divorce thing because I'm like, this is really good. So thank you, Kari, for joining me. So when we go, okay, so because that was gonna be my question, and you kind of put that in there because that was one of the things y'all did. So now having children was a big thing for you. So when you let's go back to the depression part. So I'm big on dealing with trauma and triggers and things like that, as well as you are too. And I just really feel like, was your depression centered around like workforce, just you unhappy with some things that you did not realize about yourself you didn't like, or was you depressed because of the marriage, or things that you thought that were going to happen in life that had not happened? What do you think was the major cause of your depression, and how it affected your marriage?
Yeah, I had a lot of things going on at the time. I was dealing with some very bad situations at work. I had some health issues going on at the same time, and then the relationship. But it really was that part of, the relationship part of it, in terms of how it was supporting me or not supporting me with those other areas as well. Like that was kind of tying into it. So, if you ever have to go to an oncology center by yourself because your spouse won't take time off to go with you, okay. That plays into it, right? So they're kind of all interconnected. So, but I try to learn to keep things separated, right? Leave work problems at work. Don't bring that home and dump that on your partner. That's not fair to them, sort of a thing. But it really there were just some things missing in the relationship that just weren't fulfilling me emotionally, that, I wasn't feeling taken care of in my relationship. That just, I think it was one of those situations where you feel alone even though you're not alone, which people will say is like one of the worst kind of things.
Most definitely. Mm-hmm. Been there, done that. So when we talk about, was your ex-husband, was he like oblivious to the fact being that you were depressed, or did you wear a mask where he couldn't really tell that you were depressed? Because seriously, like, even though, and this is a sidebar, I'm a suicide attempt survivor. And so when I think about the times that I was at my lowest, only because my ex-husband was a narcissist and everything was about him, and I ended up getting gaslighted because, of, trying to put everything off on me. He could care less about me being depressed. It was always,
Yep.
oh, you'll get over it, get up and get yourself together. Whether if I want to stay in a bed all day long just because I didn't feel like doing anything, it was always like a fight, or like physical altercations would pull me out the bed, telling me I got to get out the bed, not really dealing with my mental health. And because of what I was going through with him and just in life in general, I didn't deal with my mental health at the time. I could take full responsibility for those things now. So I know I didn't have that type of support. And it's really difficult, like you said, when we're going through different things, medically, emotionally, on the job, that are life altering, life changing events. If we marry somebody for better, for worse, for rich, for poor, and all this other stuff, and then you don't have that support when I'm going through the worst, when I'm going through the sickness, then whether it be physical or mental, because mental health is really challenging. When you're talking about all this stuff, of course, that can put you further in a deeper hole, because again, when you marry these people, they're supposed to really become your best friend. If I
Right.
can't talk to anybody else, I should be able to come to you. And when you're at a state where I don't even feel like I can come talk to you because I feel like you're either going to downplay how I feel, you're not going to accept how I feel, or you're going to make me feel some kind of way about the way I feel, it could be a problem. So was your spouse not attentive to these things? Did he not pay attention? Was it like over his head? Because I'm not
Yeah.
trying to talk about men, but sometimes men, if you're listening to me, this is your big sister Renee. And sometimes you guys are oblivious to stuff and it
Yeah.
goes over your head, not on purpose. It's just that you're not paying attention for real. So I'm trying to help you
Right.
all when you're dealing with your spouses and your partners to understand that if you see something out of whack, be concerned and have the conversation. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Back to you, Kara.
No, no, no. Yeah, you know what? You make an excellent point, and I am sorry that you've gone through that. I've also dealt with narcissists in the past, and that is a whole different ball game to get out of. Fortunately for me, my ex-husband fell into the oblivious category. I I think I probably masked it pretty well, right? I just
Because
had
we
to
do
keep
that too.
going. Just had to keep going through, right? I didn't feel like I had any other option. You just keep plugging along. You keep trying at the relationship. You keep going to work. You just keep showing up over and over and again. And this was a handful of years ago before I really started learning more about mental health and actually understanding these sorts of feelings. And in fact, it took me a while to even figure out that I was depressed. But no, we never had those conversations. We didn't talk about how I was feeling, nothing like that. So I think he just was completely oblivious to what was going on in my head for that period of time.
And we have and this is, fellas, let me help you out again, and other females, we have a problem of trying to like you say, mask, which I was very good at a lot of times, especially with outside sources. And also not being totally honest with ourselves, so we can be honest with our mates, to tell them exactly what we're going to, for fear of being gaslight, for fear of them rejecting us, for
That's right.
fear of them downplaying how we feel. We may not tell them the whole story, which I've been big on in my lives, telling people, you need to, just like you took the 9 months to have the difficult conversation that had to be had, we need to have these difficult conversations and just understand that whatever the conversation is about, whether it be a mortgage, whether it be children, not children, having kids, being together, anything that when you're doing a marriage, you need to have a conversation. You should be respectful enough to respect my view on how I feel, even if you don't necessarily agree with it. Don't make me feel some kind of way because I feel the way I feel. They're my
That's right.
feelings, and vice
That's right.
versa. So this is really good. So I appreciate you. So we've been through this, so I don't have to ask you questions about the kids. So when we're going through the actual divorce process, I could tell that you've been kind of triggered, like you said, because that process took a lot longer and you all weren't really fighting for anything. So did you have assistance through the process, or did you kind of do it by yourself? Or I mean support rather, through the process, like
Um,
family and friends?
so I actually, my executive coach that I was working with, he's actually the one that walked me through the whole process. He provided me with a lawyer's information. He kind of provided some consulting and told me how to approach the conversations with my ex and what to talk about and the things that we needed to cover, and just he really provided that outside perspective and that guidance to say, here's how we're going to go through this. And he kind of walked me through and was there with me the whole time as I was going through that process. So
Okay, so the young lady said when people go through in a marriage, the opposite person has to have the compassion for the other person, identify what the problem is, and then come with a solution to fix it. True. However, sometimes some things just can't be fixed, or people choose not to fix them. Like I
Right.
said, I'm an advocate for the institution of marriage. I think it's a wonderful thing, and it takes work, and that's where I think a lot of people fall off at, that they don't think. I mean, one of the songs, and it's an old song by Teddy Pendergrass, where he says, you got to give 50-50 love. No, it's actually more like 100 and something
100
plus per on each person. I
per
can't do
person. Yeah.
100, you only get 20. We both need to give 100% both times
That's
of
right.
ourselves and our energy in order for this to work. So that's a
That's
good
right.
point. But yeah, you do, in order to make something successful, you have to be all in or either all
That's right.
out. You can't come in half stepping, because it's just it's going to be a disaster anyway. Sister Tracy says absolutely good communication is important. So thank you all again for joining me. Thanks, Tracy, for coming on. So you had some help through the process.
I did.
Do you think so? Okay, so let me ask you this question first. What now could possibly trigger you? Well, no, I guess I was going to ask first question. Do you have intentions, or do you desire to be married again?
I do not.
Really?
Yeah, so it's been a roller coaster since then. So I'm coming up on 6 years here, and I'll say after I got divorced, I was totally open to it again, and I thought, you know what, I would totally get married again. I liked being married. I like having that partner and knowing that there's going to be somebody lifelong to go through this thing with. And I thought, I've put in some work. I spent some time on me thinking back about the relationship, what went wrong, where I could improve, right? Going through that self-growth and having those conversations with myself. And I was like, yeah, I would totally get married again. And then, no, no, I am at a point where I've kind of taken it off the table. In fact, not even dating. It's just not, I've kind of changed my thoughts quite a bit about marriage, at least for me
So
personally, not
is
in
it
general,
because
but.
of the divorce? Do you think the divorce triggered you not to want to go through this process again?
The divorce process or the emotional part of it?
All of it.
Um, you know what? I don't think so. I think I'm more just turned away from. I don't know. I actually I've been trying to think about like how to put this into words, and I think honestly we talked about that growth, right? And people change, and you're not the same person you were when you woke up this morning. And I'm somebody who goes through, I feel like, pretty quick changes. They happen pretty leaps and bounds sometimes. Like I'll attend a conference and walk out of there a changed person on some major issue. And so for me, I just have a hard time imagining finding somebody who can accept you as you are, as you show up, and be able to just say every single day, yeah, I accept where you are right now, and I'm also growing and I'm also changing, because you have to, I think, find people who are also open to growing and changing. And like, you don't want to be with somebody that's just totally chill and where they are and not moving, where you're constantly kind of like, yeah, I'm totally open all the time. And I think if you get too far off on the pace at which you're experiencing that growth, can be just as hard. So I have a hard time seeing me aligning with somebody for really a long period of time.
I'm asking you this question. This is one of them hypothetical questions. So let's just say you meet this like fabulous guy,
Hmm.
and you all are just friends, just like real cool. Y'all hang out, and you see that he matches what you're doing, where you're going, whatever have you, and all of a sudden the conversation begins to change.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would be open to the change, or would you still kind of shut that person down?
No, it's funny timing actually. So I've been kind of approaching, I'm not dating, like I said. I am working on just developing friendships and growing my friend community. I'm in a new city, so I'm just trying to do that. And I'm very much, I don't approach relationships or friendships any differently. I think friendship is so important in a, especially a romantic relationship. You have to like each other. So I'm very open to, if I meet somebody, we are friends and it develops into something more than that. I'm very open to that. Um, but as far as the marriage thing goes, where I'm at right now is a no. I
Understood.
think,
But you're an
yeah.
ever evolving person. Remember that.
That's true, and but that's where I'm at right now, and
Okay.
it's like if that's a make or break, it's just like children, right? If that's a make
Right.
or break question for someone, the best I can tell them is it's a no right now, and I don't see that changing in the long term. But like you said, somebody could come into my life, and after 5 years of friendship and a developed relationship, it might say, actually, I can see this person. I could see staying on path with this person and wanting that. So hypothetically,
Hypothetical.
it could happen.
Good, good, good. I think that's really about it. Only thing I would ask, like again, I have to say this for the people who follow me. Of course, again, I tell you all the time, I am a firm follower and believe strongly in the institution of marriage. Most definitely. I think it's a blessing. I think that it's God ordained. Miss Kari is not a believer, and I don't force my belief on people. However, I do have people that follow me that say the same things. And I can still say openly, Kari, that I pray God's best for you because of what I believe. Never try to change your belief in what you feel or whatever have you. I do believe that higher powers, higher beings, spirituality, Zen, yoga, meditation, whatever you do to connect with your inner being, then that's what we do. That's what you do to maintain mental stability
hmm
and to try to figure out this thing called life with relationships and being married. So I just want to thank you again for joining me. This conversation has been very enlightening. You shared some very good tips for this side. I'm sure that the people who are watching will get some very good nuggets from it. Um, so in closing, I would like for you to give some tips or some good carrot nuggets when it comes to relationships that you feel that will help somebody out, and then tell people what you do again and how they can connect with you, and then that's it for tonight.
Yeah, so I have two sort of very different tips that I would give for relationships. One of them covers the topic of blame. I do not believe in blame. I know that there are bad relationships, and there are people, like you said, narcissists especially. I wholeheartedly, these people need to get some help and whatever. But I always like to think about things as more of, especially for those of us who maybe, I've been in a relationship with a narcissist as well, and it's so easy to put blame on ourselves and say, I did something to cause this, right? I wasn't good enough for this person. Something happened here, and we can kind of get sucked into those negative thoughts. And so I've learned to just express it in terms of it just wasn't a match. Okay, I'm not a bad person. I'm not lacking in some way. I just was not a match for what this person needs. And because they're the one to tell you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not compassionate enough, you're not whatever enough. And we might take that on ourselves, or we might say, I did something that caused this person to want to hurt me this way. But I've learned to just say, nope, I am good how I am. I am a decent person. So I just am not a match for what that person's looking for. And that's really helped me overcome those kind of negative thought patterns and just saying, there's nothing wrong with me. It just wasn't the right fit for that person. There's 7 billion people on this planet. I'll go find one that's a right fit for me.
Right.
The other one is in terms of, if you are struggling with a relationship and the decision that you want to make there, I like to think of it in terms of the past, present, and future. So many times we get stuck on the past and we think things were good before. You have a good day and you're reminded about the beginning when it was all flowers and fun dates, and you kind of hang on to those and say, we can get back to that again. And so I say, no, you got to forget the past and you leave that behind you, and you have to stop with the what ifs of the future. The can't, this person can change and this, that, whatever, and you've just got to focus on who both of you are in that moment right now. And the question that I always ask myself is, can I accept this person exactly as they are right here today forever?
Mm, that's good.
Assuming that they will never change, right? We talked about growth. Some people aren't, and if you get hung up on they'll change, they'll change, they'll change,
You're setting yourself up for failure.
you're setting yourself up. So I like to ask myself, can I accept this person exactly as they are forever? Giving them room, right? Whatever, however they are. If tomorrow they show up differently, same question. Can I accept them exactly as they are like this forever? But just staying present with the person that is here with you right now, not the person they were, not the person you want them to be.
That's good. That's amazing. I never quite thought about it that way before, so you've given me good perspective. I really appreciate that. So yeah, tell people how they can get in touch with you and what exactly you do and what services you
Yep.
offer if they're interested in connecting with you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually a start over coach. So for the people who get completely burned out by their lives, they're feeling lost, they're thinking, how did I get here? I'm just dissatisfied. I don't know what I want to do, but I know that it's not this. And sometimes you just need a clean slate and you just want to start over, but it's so overwhelming when you look at your future and say, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. So I'm a start over coach, so I do offer one-on-one coaching services for that. My background is in engineering, project management, quality and process improvement, and leadership. So I've got some technical and logical solutions that I can bring to this to help people with things like decision making and planning and actually putting together like a real blueprint to start again. So I do offer one-on-one coaching. I'm also a public speaker. They can contact me through my website, karizcoaching.com. That's KARIZEE coaching.com, or on all social media platforms at Kari Z Coaching. I'm across the board. So.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Once this uploads to Instagram, I'm not sure if I cleared out enough space on my phone for it actually to download. I haven't been able to put on YouTube, but I will try to get it to you, at least in your inbox. Maybe you can kind of download it or save something. So I know you might
Appreciate it.
share with your people. However, technology makes that. We'll make it happen. We'll figure something out. How about that?
Yes, thank you.
So
Appreciate that.
no problem. I thank you for answering the call and coming on and being on my live. I really appreciate you. It was nice meeting you. I'm quite sure we will bump heads again in the speaker circle or somewhere else. And
Yep.
thank you for just blessing me with your live. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for the work that you do. This is such it's such a big, important, impactful thing, and I appreciate you offering people this opportunity to connect one-on-one, to get messages out there, and the work that you do. So thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Because what I'm going to do is, because I am a trauma recovery coach, I'm trying to figure out different topics to have every month to kind of keep these conversations going. So of course, October is domestic violence month, so that's what I'll be talking about in October. September is suicide prevention month, so I'll have a few days about that. But I would love to come back on and talk about things about depression and other things too. So I may reach out to you again just to come back and give your
Yeah,
expertise.
come on, chat with me. I'll talk about it.
All right, Kara, I appreciate you. Have a good night, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining me live, and thank you for those who are watching the replay. This is your girl, Y Renee, your trauma recovery coach. I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you all have a good night, and thank you again.